Hi everybody, welcome back to Marie's Kitchen. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are making pot roast, and my mom made pot roast when we were growing up, and it always made the house smell so wonderful. We couldn't wait for dinner. This pot roast is a one-pot meal that is hearty, satisfying, and so delicious. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's get started. So first up, we have a 3-pound chuck roast here. And if you have a favorite cut of meat that you use for pot roast, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear some of your other suggestions. I do like this cut because it is so juicy and tender and flavorful, but it is pretty fatty. So if you have another one that you really like, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. All right, first we're gonna season this with some salt and pepper. Flip this over so I don't have to wash my hands. Ta-da! There we go. Salt and pepper. Now we'll head over to the stove and I'm going to heat some oil in a large Dutch oven. We'll start by putting the fire to about a medium-high heat. We'll get the pan nice and hot. And I'll add some olive oil to that. And then when the oil is shimmery but not smoking, we'll go ahead and add our beef to the pan. And although it is tempting to maybe want to skip this step of browning, I really do think that browning adds a really beautiful color for the final presentation and also some great flavor. So I think it's an important step and I hope you'll stick with it. Okay, this feels nice and hot. The oil's shimmering. We'll go ahead and add this to it. Probably safer to use a tongs or your hand, but I'm just using the same fork here. Just lay it right down in there and let the browning begin. You don't want to cover it while it's browning because you want to let that steam escape. If you trap too much moisture in there, it's not going to brown. And again, the goal is to get a nice brown kind of crust on the bottom. And if you're wondering how to know when to flip it over, it will actually tell you when it releases from the bottom of the pan, that's when it's time to turn it over. If you kind of pull it up and it's just still stuck to the bottom of the pan, it's not ready yet. But generally it's about 5 minutes. So I'll set a timer just to remind us. And while that is browning, let's prep the veggies. First up, we've got some carrots. And I usually use about 3 to 4 carrots. These are pretty small, so I may use more. It's completely up to you. We like a lot of carrots. Woo! Almost lost the carrot there. Next up is our onion, and I do use a different cutting board for onions and garlic, mainly because I don't like say I'm cutting apples or mango. I don't like that fruit to taste like onions and garlic. So get a different cutting board that's just easy to differentiate from your other cutting boards and use that for your onion and garlic. And that way you won't have garlicky apples, which to me is just the worst. So we'll just cut these into kind of rings here. I suppose this is such a big onion, we could cut those in half. There we go. Onions and carrots are done. Back over to the stove to check our chuck. Definitely smells amazing. So let's grab our chuck here and take a look. Oh, that is beautiful. Wow, look at all that gorgeous, gorgeous color there we got. And that was even more like 6 to 7 minutes on that one side. So give it a good cook, get it nice and brown, and you'll have lots of good flavor. If you start to smell some burning and see quite a bit of smoke, you can reduce the heat just a little bit. That's just to prevent any of the little pieces from burning because you don't want a burnt flavor in there. All right, now we'll get some garlic. I need 3 cloves. Of course, you can always use more. Or less if you can't even get one off. Okay, there's nice 3 big pieces here. To peel the garlic, I'm gonna use my little silicone tube here. You just press and roll, and out comes the garlic. Nice and peeled. And do a few more. I'll put a link to this little tube in the description box if you'd like to get one. It's really handy. Okay, there. There we go. Let's check our meat over here, see how it's doing. Oh yeah, that came off just fine. So we'll take this out and we're gonna set it aside. We'll turn the heat down to about medium or medium low-ish. And now we're gonna add 1 cup of red wine. And I normally wouldn't show you that I use box wine on TV, but that's what I'm using. So it's the Cabernet Sauvignon, and we're gonna use 1 cup of it. No shame in boxed wine. All right, now we'll take our wine and pour it right into all this delicious flavor. Use a wooden spatula or wooden spoon to scrape up any brown bits on the bottom there. Scrape those up and mix them in with the wine. And now it's really starting to smell good over here, and we haven't even added the garlic or onions yet. We give that a stir. And to that, we'll add 3 tablespoons unsalted butter. Toss those right in. That'll melt down with the wine. Next is 2 tablespoons Worcestershire sauce. 1 and 2. And finally, to our little flavor mixture here, we're going to add about 1 tablespoon sugar. You can do a little bit less if you like. You could do a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, or 3 teaspoons, which is 1 tablespoon. We'll just sprinkle that in. It won't, okay, turn the timer off. It won't taste sweet at all. It just balances out the flavor of the wine and the Worcestershire and the meat and the salt. All that together just really tastes good. So I like to add a little sprinkle of sugar in there. We'll let this melt and kind of cook off some of that alcohol. So about at medium heat, let it bubble just a bit. Okay, this looks great. So we'll turn that off, the heat off now. We can add the chuck roast back to the mixture here. Oh, that looks good. Next up, we'll add our onions. Then we'll add some carrots, about half the carrots, about half the garlic, toss that in there. Next, I have some sliced onions, and this is 16 ounces of sliced mushrooms. We love mushrooms, and often my daughter will eat the mushrooms, more than the beef. So we use a lot of mushrooms, 16 ounces sliced, and we just drop those in there as well. The nice thing about adding mushrooms is they make a really wonderful liquid when they cook down, which gives you lots of kind of soupy sauce to add on your beef, whether you're serving it on noodles or mashed potatoes or whatever. So put some of those in there, then we'll go back to some mushrooms. And it's not even filming. That's a bummer. Sorry about that, the camera wasn't working, but we're good now. So we're adding our mushrooms and our onions on top here. Then we'll add the rest of our carrots. Really pack it in. Got more mushrooms. And these will shrink down. You won't even hardly see them. So don't worry about that. Now we'll add a few bay leaves, which adds some lovely flavor. Dried bay leaves, always have those in your pantry. And then I had some thyme here, so I'll throw some thyme in. Lovely flavor. And then I also have some rosemary, so I'm gonna do both. Usually I do one or the other. I've really been enjoying rosemary lately, but I'm gonna add a little of both and make it really herby and fragrant. Yum. Now I'll sprinkle some salt on top of the veggies so we make sure we get everything seasoned. You can always add more salt at the end. That's what I like to do just to make sure, I can taste it first. Lots of pepper in there. Oh my gosh, look at this gorgeous, gorgeous pot. Look at that. Wow. Now we've got our oven preheated to 300 degrees and we're going to simply put a lid on the Dutch oven here. Do be careful because the handles will be hot. So grab your oven mitts and we'll pop this in the oven. One thing to do, which I just did, is always check your oven racks. If you're going to be using a big Dutch oven, it often won't fit in the rack setup that you have. So either pull one rack out or move a rack lower so there's plenty of room for the Dutch oven. And this can go lower in the oven, sort of in the bottom third. Now we'll set a timer here for 3 hours. We'll check in at about 3 hours. If it feels a little tough when you pull it out, that just means it needs about another 30 minutes to an hour of cooking. So don't be discouraged. If you haven't cooked a lot of braised meats like this, what happens is they actually feel tougher. And then as the collagen breaks down after longer cooking, then they start to fall. That's when it gets that fall apart tender. So don't be discouraged if you're cooking like a Don't be discouraged if you're cooking like a oh my gosh, I'm trying to say pot roast and pork roast. Don't be discouraged if you're cooking like a pork roast or a chuck roast. Those are gonna feel really tight and tough at about the 3 hour mark. But you go a little longer, from 3.5 to 4 hours, and that's when it starts to get really just fall apart tender. Okay, it's been about 4 hours, so I'm gonna grab the roast out of the oven. Got my mitts on. Here is the roast. Okay, this looks and smells incredible. You see that nice brown beef there with all the vegetables and the herbs. It looks delicious and it's got such good color on the beef. I'm really glad we took the time to brown it. Now we can just take 2 forks and shred a little here, pull off a little bite. It just pulls right off. Oh my, that is delicious. Reminds me of growing up. So this is about done. We can pull out the aromatics, the bay leaves, the thyme sprigs, the rosemary sprigs. And then if you like, there is a little bit of grease on top. If you'd like, you can kind of scoop that off. For serving, I like to make it with a big batch of egg noodles. Throw some salted butter on those and then serve it with some beef, some broth, some vegetables, and I do a little Parmesan cheese. Or you can use what I have here. It's truffle salt. So it's a little salt if you want to season your beef, but it also has some black truffle in it. And it is delicious on any kind of beef. So that's for serving. Also, I usually put one of these in the oven. This is a country loaf by Central Market. If you have a Central Market or an H-E-B, they do have these at H-E-B. And they're in the frozen section. You just open it up, pop this in the oven. You can see it's a gorgeous loaf of bread, and you just pop that in the oven for about 20 minutes and it is ready to serve. And it tastes like homemade bread. It's warm, it's crusty, it's soft inside, and so good for kind of mopping up the juices. If you don't want to do noodles and bread as far as like gluten or something, you can do mashed potatoes. That would be delicious with this. I just really hope you get to try it. If you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. It means so much to me and also to YouTube. And if you haven't yet, please do subscribe. We are so close to 100,000 followers. I'm hoping by the time I get this video edited, we will be there. But guess what? Once we hit 100,000, we are on to 200,000. Let's see if we can do it. For this recipe and more, head over to my website, mariesaba.com. There you can go and print out this recipe and all my recipes. Put them in a notebook if you like and make your very own Marie's Kitchen cookbook for free. My goal is to give you some really easy recipes that turn out great every time so you can build some confidence in the kitchen and feel really inspired to share good food with people that you love. From my kitchen to yours. Thank you.